Is Meghan Markle abusing her royal title to interfere in U.S. politics? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today I'm going to be talking about Meghan Markle's recent interview in Vogue that just released about an hour ago, where she is advocating for abortion policy in the United States, and she's really taking the progressive Democrat line on this issue. And she's really inserting herself into a highly polarizing political situation. Obviously, abortion policy is different all over the world, but in the United States, it has very specific political connotations. And so I think Meghan Markle is once again abusing the title the royal family gave to her to insert her perspective into U.S. politics. And as an American, I strongly disagree with that. I don't care if she's American or not. I strongly disagree with that, and I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany, and we talk about everything related to royal, so that's news, gossip, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. So if you want to subscribe, that would be great. The channel is growing like crazy right now, and I have a 5,000 subscriber giveaway that I'm going to be doing very, very soon. I just crossed the line much faster than I anticipated. So this is very, very exciting. But like I said, this is going to be a very important topic, and I realize that there are strong feelings on both sides of the abortion issue, but I'm going to try to remain as politically neutral as possible and try to hopefully explain it to people outside the United States too, what exactly is going on behind this decision. So just to start off with, what is Roe v. Wade? What is this decision, and what's going on here in the United States? So Roe versus Wade is a decision that happened in 1973, and it gave women the right to an abortion across the country. Now, before that, states had been able to individually adopt certain abortion policies. Some of them could outlaw it completely, and some of them could allow it essentially up till birth. And so with the Roe v. Wade decision, abortion became constitutionally legal across the United States. And there was a kind of a term limit built into Roe. And so usually, by the third trimester, usually abortion was illegal. They would make exceptions for certain circumstances. And so the abortion numbers went up initially after that decision. And then there was another decision called Planned Parenthood v. Casey. And in this decision, they kind of decided to go with more of a viability for the abortion cutoff date. So basically, whatever the Supreme Court decided for the cutoff date, the states could regulate within after that. So if the viability was set by the government, let's say between 22 and 24 weeks, most states could outlaw abortion after the 22-24 week mark. That's generally how it went. Some states you can abort basically up till birth, and during birth you can do that. And then in some states they have basically limits up into that, viability marker. So what this decision does is Dobbs v. Jackson, basically, Jackson Women's Health Center, I believe. And what this decision does is it says, okay, Roe v. Wade was a bad decision, because it actually was. A lot of even legal scholars who are pro-abortion thought that the legal rationale behind it was actually rather poor. They kind of pulled this right out of their butts, basically, is what they did. It didn't really have any basis in the Constitution. And so the Supreme Court decided that, what we're going to do, because the United States was founded on the idea of being a federal republic, meaning that it's a federation of states. So each individual states get to do a lot of, make a lot of policy within that state on various issues, and then the government, the national government, can make certain issues more related to like foreign issues and those sorts of things. And so what the Supreme Court did essentially was give this decision back to the states. So if you are in Nebraska, you can vote pro-life. If you're in New York, you can vote pro-abortion. And basically every particular state has different options when it comes to abortion. That's basically what this decision did. And I should mention as well, when it comes to politics in the United States. So basically there's two parties. There's a couple of little itty bitty parties, but nobody cares. There's the two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. So the Republicans generally are pro-life. So generally they adopt policies that either can sometimes outlaw abortion completely, in most or all circumstances. And then sometimes they can say, well, we allow abortion, but only up to maybe 6 weeks, 10 weeks, something like that. So they kind of regulate it based on, they see a value in human life that they want to protect. And so that's why they they regulate abortion within a certain, they either outlaw it completely, like I said, or they have just a certain window where it's just kind of okay. Because even if you say you're pro-life or pro-choice, there can be varying degrees on that. Some people can be pro-life and still support abortion up to 6 to 10 weeks. Some people can be pro-abortion but still want to limit abortion at 15 weeks. It's a very nebulous issue in a lot of ways, except for the extremes on either side. So when it comes to the Democrats, though, their party line is basically women's rights to their bodies and their bodily autonomy supersedes all other issues. And so ergo, abortion should always be legal in all circumstances, legal up to the point of birth, even perhaps potentially after birth. There was even a Democratic governor in the state of Virginia that basically said, well, you know, I can't remember the exact wording he used, but he basically said, and he was a doctor, that, you know, he would just put a baby off to the side and let the baby die. In a situation where I believe the baby, if I remember correctly what he said, the child had, you know, maybe severe developmental issues or something like that. You know, he's like, well, you can just leave this child off to the side and make them comfortable and watch them die. That is essentially kind of what he advocated. So there's very much extremes on either end when it comes to this issue. And a lot of people vote for a particular party based on this issue. And it is one that's very much passionate for Americans. And the frustration with, you know, people who are on the more conservative side is that, you know, there's been this abortion policy that is federally across the United States, where individual states that say, you know what, we want to be pro-life, are not able to exercise that right as a state because each state votes certain representatives into office. So the representatives should reflect what the people want. Now, when you go to Democratic states, same thing. They should be able to regulate the abortion the way they want. If it's extreme all the way till birth, even infanticide, if that's what the voters want, then they can vote those people into office. That's kind of how the United States works. So why do we have a duchess from another country who has no other skills other than marrying up in life? Kind of the typical, like, you know, she's a feminist, yet she's done the least feminist thing possible by marrying her influence, is interfering in this issue. It's a complex issue. I don't care where you stand on the abortion divide. Pro-life, pro-abortion, I don't care. I don't care about Meghan Markle's opinion on this topic at all. I do not care. And I don't like that she's interfering in this issue because it has specific political connotations. I mean, she basically advocated for Joe Biden in the election. Her and Harry did. And this continual inserting herself into US politics is both ridiculous and ludicrous, because the only reason anybody cares what Meghan Markle has to say about anything is because she married a guy who made her noteworthy. That is it. And I mean, I understand a lot of people are in the same boat. They marry up, they have somebody who's maybe of higher influence than them, but they don't have a royal title. Every time she uses her royal title, she represents the UK government, regardless of what she thinks. She represents them. Every time she says, I'm Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, which they refer to her throughout the entire interview, although they did make the little, I think they made her little comments MM for Meghan Markle instead of the Duchess of Sussex. I guess you can't put Sussex or whatever in the thing. But it's like when she uses this title Sussex, she's kind of representing Sussex. And she has no business doing that while interfering in US politics. We have another princess who lives here in the United States, Princess Madeleine of Sweden. I don't care what she thinks about certain political issues either, and I don't know what she thinks about them. And that's perfectly fine. I don't care, because she is a foreign royal in this country. She basically does still represent her country, and she takes that role seriously. And guess what? She doesn't interfere in US politics, and it's awesome. But Meghan Markle thinks that she's God's gift to the United States, I feel like. And God's gift to, I don't know, because, you know, she has to be an advocate all the time. She has to always jump on another bandwagon. So here are some of the brief things from the interview. And she actually got some of the information that she's portraying in this interview wrong about kind of specifically Justice Clarence Thomas's intention and his concurrence in the decision. So you can read the decision for yourself. It's quite long, as the justice who wrote it, Samuel Alito, actually went through and explained what abortion policy was in each of the states and why there was never really justified grounds for making it a national mandate that abortion access. So let me read you a couple of the lovely quotes from our self-imposed American Duchess. We are told that Meghan is a vocal advocate for paid leave and fair labor rights for women. I don't ever remember her really talking about that except for in paid family leave. And there's actually is more of a broad scale political support for that issue, but there's different interpretations of how that could come about. So again, but of course she goes to whatever the Democratic side is, not just saying, well, I support this issue. It's like, well, I want this specific policy and I'm supporting this specific organization that's advocating for a progressive democratic policy that's not going to not going to unify the various parties. But again, I don't care about her opinion about politics, except for the fact that she's actually inserting herself into politics here in my country with her royal title. Oh, it says here as well that the connection soon blossomed into an alliance, and for the past several months, Steinem and Meghan have been formulating a plan to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified. So Meghan says, after being questioned about, for women who live in other states, but of course, as the United States, you can actually move to whatever state reflects your political beliefs and your political environment. That is your right as well. Says, this is having a very real impact on women's bodies and lives starting now. Women with resources will travel to get an abortion. Those without might attempt to give themselves one at tremendous risk. Some will have to source abortion pills from unregulated pharmacies. Others who are pregnant and find themselves in a medical emergency will be at the mercy of doctors and lawyers to determine if a procedure that is needed to save her life can be done at all. What does this tell women? It tells us that our physical safety doesn't matter, and as a result that we don't matter, but we do. Women matter. And this is one of the reasons that I called Gloria immediately, because in all of it, she reminds me that when you have anger, you have to channel that energy into something that makes a difference. That's what activism is. And it's about how we show up. Now, it's kind of important to, obviously people have said that, if a woman is experiencing an ectopic pregnancy, which means basically that the egg has attached, the fertilized egg has attached to the fallopian tube, that child is not viable. So it's not an abortion, it's a medical procedure in that situation, because there's no chance, it will definitely kill the mother. The child will definitely die. You have to do that. There are also situations where, let's say a woman has cancer and she is pregnant and she obviously needs the chemo treatment, and she's wondering, well, can I continue the pregnancy? Can I not? Those sorts of things. What they can do, obviously, is always deliver the child. They don't have to they don't have to do an abortion. They can always deliver if she wants to wait for, maybe a little bit, if that's at all possible. So doctors will not deny women healthcare coverage in those situations. That's just kind of it's a media talking point in this narrative. Gloria Steinem says, Meghan, I owe this friendship to you because I did not realize that in California, where I was sheltering on a friend's ranch, we were neighbors, or at least what is called neighbors in California, which means you're a half hour away? Laugh. It was you who realized that and came to the farmhouse where I was. Then we sat at the dining room table and made our cold calls together. Meghan said, I was thrilled. I was nervous too. I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to be in front of Gloria Steinem? The presidential election was coming up soon, and we both knew the value of women and everyone getting out to vote. The ripple effect of elections matters so much, and that's what we're seeing now. Again, it shows that Meghan was inserting herself into U.S. politics and kind of really seeking out people who could raise her profile in this space. And Gloria Steinem, who is a feminist and women's rights activist, was one of those people. So Meghan is asked by the high maternal mortality rate in African-American women, and this is actually a true statistic. This is something that is happening in the United States. It could be attributed to a variety of issues, but Meghan, of course, goes for the political. She says, these issues are systemic, interconnected, and preventable. Women of color, especially Black women, are most impacted by these decisions because most of us don't have the same access to healthcare, economic opportunity, mental health resources, the list goes on. It's difficult to overstate what this decision is going to do for these communities, says a woman who's living in a $15 million mansion paid for by her rich white husband. Just saying. Okay, and this is another situation where Meghan is responding to this question, but she's not portraying it, again, correctly. So it says, in his occurring opinion, Justice Clarence Thomas, who was Black, by the way, said that the court should correct the error, quote unquote, of allowing for same-sex marriage, same-sex relationships, and even contraception. Legal analysis, I trust, argued that same-sex marriage is at most risk from this court. James Obergefell, who brought the case that legalized same-sex marriage, has warned it's in danger. Meghan, how concerned are you, not just for women, but for other groups who fought to gain rights in the U.S.? Do you think this is a canary in the coal mine moment? Meghan said, absolutely. We saw in plain terms with Justice Thomas's concurring opinion, this is a blueprint for reversing rights. The ruling is a signal about the future of same-sex marriage, contraception access, and many fundamental rights to privacy. It feels like the tip of the iceberg, and it is part of why people feel so scared. We have to channel that fear into action. We can start this November in the midterms. I know hearing that feels so repetitive, but we have to vote every time, from local elections to state and national elections. In parentheses, it should say, as long as you vote Democratic like I do. But here is actually what Clarence Thomas said in his decision. He's not saying that those things should be outlawed. What he's saying is that those decisions should be made by the states and not by the courts. Because kind of what's happened in the United States is if certain policies don't get through, especially oftentimes from the Democratic side, not always, but sometimes, if they can't do it legislatively, which is how they should do it, they go through the courts and basically make the court a legislative body, which is not supposed to be. The court is supposed to interpret the Constitution based on particular cases related to states and even the national government. It's not supposed to create policy that extends throughout the United States, really. And that's what abortion, contraception, same-sex marriage they were also all based on the abortion decision initially, the 14th Amendment, how they interpreted it, which they interpreted it incorrectly. And Clarence explains this in his concurring opinion. So a concurring opinion means is that there's the majority of the opinion where pretty much there were 5 justices that signed on. And then a concurring opinion is, I believe there were just 2. So there was just Chief Justice Roberts and Clarence Thomas. Oh, sorry, there were 6 justices who affirmed, 3 who dissented. So if you affirm, you can also write a concurring opinion where if perhaps there is an aspect of the case where it's like, well, I would have liked to extend it, I would have liked to pull it back. So Chief Justice Roberts actually wanted to advocate for keeping Mississippi's 15-week ban. Justice Clarence Thomas said, no, every decision that was made by this court based on the bad decision in terms of Roe, legally speaking, I'm talking about the legalese of the Roe decision, was not a right interpretation of the Constitution. They basically made it up out of thin air. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg agrees with that, basically, is that it was a bad decision in terms of interpreting the Constitution. So Justice Clarence Thomas wanted that to extend not just to the abortion issue, but all the issues that have come after it. So he said, the idea is that the framers of the 14th Amendment understood the Due Process Clause, which is how Roe is based on the Due Process Clause, to protect a right to abortion is farcical. The resolution of this case is thus straightforward. Because the Due Process Clause does not secure any substantive rights, it does not secure the right to an abortion. For that reason, in future cases, we should reconsider all the court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, which was contraception, Lawrence, sodomy, and Obergefell, same-sex marriage, because any substantive due process decision is demonstratively erroneous. We have a duty to correct the error established in those precedents. So that was what Clarence Thomas was saying. He's not saying that we're going to take contraception away from you. That's not what he's saying at all. He's saying that the court making that decision was false. It shouldn't have done that because it had no right to do it in the first place. And part of this decision is correcting that error. But again, Meghan Markle probably doesn't know this, probably doesn't care, because again, she can't look at the whole picture. She can only look at it from her particular political persuasion. And I hope I'm doing a pretty good job of keeping as neutrally possible on the topic of how this all came together. And then Meghan Markle goes on to say, it's a much larger conversation about why for years, for decades, we're fighting to get a constitutional amendment put through, the Equal Rights Amendment, that makes it clear that women can be treated equally, and how it is completely nonsensical that that's even something we're still fighting for. And Gloria, you know, we've talked about how to continue to push that through. I think now is the time more than ever. And Meghan is asked, is that an important issue you want to tackle? Without question, being home, seeing what's happening in our country, and feeling energized and motivated. If this is the type of legislation that we need pushed through, then this is a moment that I am absolutely going to show up for. Not just because it's what we need as women, but it's what we need as people. I mean, guys, this is the freest country in the world. It really is. If you've lived here, you know it's pretty free. So the Equal Rights Amendment is superfluous. It's unnecessary. And then she goes on to say, I think how fortunate I felt to be able to have both of my children. I know what it feels like to have a connection to what is growing inside your body. What happens with our bodies is so deeply personal, which can also lead to silence and stigma. Even though so many of us deal with personal health crises, I know what miscarrying feels like, which I've talked about publicly, because she has to talk about everything publicly. The more we normalize conversation about the things that affect our lives and bodies, the more people are going to understand how necessary it is to have protections in place. This is about women's physical safety. It's about about economic justice, individual autonomy, and who we are as a society. Nobody should be forced to make a decision they do not want to make, or is unsafe, or puts their own life in jeopardy. Frankly, whether it's a woman being put in an unthinkable situation, a woman not ready to start a family, or even a couple who deserve to plan their family in a way that makes the most sense for them, it's about having choice. It's interesting that here you're talking to two women, one who chose to give birth happily and one who chose not to give birth happily. And we are both prospering because we were able to make our own choices. Incredible. Yes, because you can make your own choices in the United States. That's never been an issue. And just as a side note, one of our Supreme Court justices actually, who voted in favor of rescinding the Roe v. Wade decision, actually has 7 children, including 2 who are adopted. Just saying. Meghan says men need to be vocal in this moment and beyond, because these are decisions that affect relationships, families, and communities at large. They may target women, but the consequences impact us all. My husband and I talked about that a lot over the past few days. He's a feminist too, in case you didn't know, because he has to be, cannot be a feminist with Meghan as his wife. That would just... She wouldn't tolerate that. And his reaction last week was guttural, like mine. I know that for so many women right now, there is a sentiment of despair. But again, we have to band together and not wallow. We have to do the work. Oh, this is interesting. Gloria, what kind of impact does it have when people like Meghan and Harry, 2 people with foreign titles, who at one point were completely supported by their own taxpayers, who wanted our taxpayers to help pay for their security at one point, probably. I don't know that for sure. But when Meghan came over here for her baby shower, she had US funded security on my dime. Not happy about that. Gloria, what kind of impact does it have when people like Meghan and Harry own this issue, speaking openly about abortion and equal rights and reproductive access, a happy man and woman with a huge platform, public platform? Are they happy? I don't honestly know. The pictures yesterday, Meghan didn't look too happy. And they put on this facade for us all the time because every time we see them, it's such a carefully curated image that it's just hard to know how happy are you. I mean, she paws at him all the time. She makes him hold her hand all the time. But that doesn't mean that you have this deep, abiding love. And granted, I'm sure most royals, a good amount of them are probably for abortion. That's totally fine. Everybody has the right to think what they want. But when Meghan is using her title to influence US politics to her point of view, as if she is an American duchess, that's where I have a problem. Deep problem. Because I don't care what Meghan Markle, I don't care what the Duchess of Sussex thinks. If Meghan Markle just wants to go by Meghan Markle and drop the title, then she should be given the time and date. But until she does that, she needs to keep out of our politics. Gloria Steinem said it's very, very, very important because what they both have is trust. No, they do not. They do not. They do not. Oh my gosh. This is so like brown nosing. It's ridiculous to, yeah. We trust them. No, we don't. And nothing but nothing replaces trust. But people don't trust them. People don't like them. The latest polls show people don't like them. And they're as polarizing as the abortion issue is itself. Are they going to get any people behind them to this topic? No, because people either like them or they loathe them. There's only two groups. There's some people in the middle, but most people are either like or loathe. That's how it goes. It's the most important quality or attribute. We see things on television and not believe them or not trust them. But when people like these two tell us, then we trust it. No, we don't. We don't trust them. I mean, people even question whether or not they actually have children. Not just the surrogacy thing, even question if the children are real. Does that mean that people trust them? No. No. Like, Gloria Steinem's talking out of her butt, basically. Like, that makes no sense. Meghan says, thank you. That's really kind. Oh, this is interesting. It says, Gloria, I'm listening to this conversation and I wonder, are you passing the baton to another generation and a new voice to help carry forward the work you've done? Holy crap, Meghan Markle. Golly. Ugh. Well, you know, it's true, though I plan to live to 100. We hope you do, the interviewer says. You will, Meghan says. Of course, she won't see her own great grandmother-in-law who is 96 and almost 100, and not her own grandfather-in-law who is 99 when she and Harry did the interview that accused the entire royal family of being racist. She didn't care then. I do have to recognize my own age. Okay, Meghan said, you will. My goodness, Gloria. I hope it's even longer than 100, and you'll still be wearing these incredible leather pants. I do have to recognize my own age, Gloria said, but I'm not passing the baton. I'm keeping the baton, but understand that we have a baton. There's not just one. Meghan, what do you think this moment requires? This moment requires unity, really listening to people, understanding the Constitution was written at a time when women were second-class citizens. We're not. Certainly certain things need to change. I think it's equally about honoring the people who've been doing the work long before us, like Gloria. I'm grateful that I'm holding a baton right here next to her, and then we can continue doing this work together. Just to say, like, we've had the right to vote in this country as women for like 100 years. So I don't know what she's talking about. The Constitution, yes, it was written in the time when women were second-class citizens. There was obviously the 3/5 compromise, which determined that an African was worth only 3/5 of a human being, which is a horrific practice. But we've changed that. The Supreme Court has also changed decisions that were terrible, like the Dred Scott decision. They've rescinded certain things. So again, don't know what she's talking about. But she doesn't really know that much. It's obviously clear. Meghan said again, I hope to look at things with the undercurrent of hope. If you are someone who truly believes that there can be something better, if you're someone who sees injustice, you have a choice. You can sit there and be complacent and watch it, or you can say, what can I do to get us to the other side of this? That's another reason why I called Gloria, because I knew what I was looking for. What do we do? How do we do it? How do we support each other? How do we get the necessary changes across the line? What we need in this moment is to start with hope. Gloria said, and this ended the interview, I think we need to remember that hope is a form of planning. You're not hopeful. If you're not hopeful, you've given up. Yeah, she really needs to get rid of that title. She really, really does. Now, granted, Meghan Markle will always be a famous name now. She married a famous man, you know, because that's basically her only claim to fame now, is marrying a man from the royal family. Again, strong feminist right there. Actually, interesting, there's a book called The Great Cat Massacre, and talks about how kind of some of the earlier fairy tales, it was actually the men who wanted to marry wealthy women because they were impoverished, and if they married like the wealthy landowner's daughter, they were elevated in society. So actually, I think that's rather feminist. But I think marrying a prince and then acting like you achieved all these things rather than it was just the man you married who gave you everything is a little hypocritical. But again, it comes back to this thing, like I said in the beginning, where is if you are a royal, you represent that country every time you use the title. If Meghan Markle had done that interview as Meghan Markle, fine. She is an American citizen now, but she keeps trying to be this pseudo-royal. She keeps trying to do kind of like her and Harry's royal engagement in New York City was like, it was a pseudo-royal tour. It was bizarre. Like they went to a school, they were met by dignitaries, and like they don't represent anything anymore. They just basically represent Archewell and their own business interests with Netflix, which is why they were doing it, because they were followed around the whole time by a Netflix crew. So they were getting this for coverage for their reality television show, which we have no release date for, and they just hired an Oscar-nominated director to help them get their own reality TV show across the finish line. So apparently, again, they can't produce worth a darn. So Meghan, as an American, yes, she has the right to say what she wants, but we also have the right to dismiss her as a joke, because that's kind of what she is. And she is abusing the title the Queen gave to her to try to influence American politics for her particular party. You need to have something that comes together to advocate for both sides of an issue, not just one. But Meghan only cares about her side. She can only see her side. And again, I hope I kind of explained the abortion situation pretty well here. Again, it is complicated here, but it's very much rooted in both parties, and people vote based on this issue. It's not a huge portion. Obviously, I think this election, it will be mostly about the economic situation. So they're expecting the Democrats to actually be completely wiped out in the midterms. The midterms happen every 2 years. And so a certain number of senators, so these are senators, there's 2 senators that represent every state. And so there's always 100 senators, and then the House of Representatives, it goes by population. So every state, you know, Wyoming has 1 or 2, and California has 55. Based on population, that's how many representatives they have. So the representative body is kind of more of a populist style body in terms of it's more, it kind of represents the populist side of the country, whereas the Senate is trying to be a bit more bipartisan. And you need a certain number of votes, so you can pass something in the House right now, but you probably can't pass something in the Senate because the Senate is basically split 50-50, with Joe Manchin, who represents West Virginia, usually siding with the Republicans. Not always, but sometimes, because West Virginia is a very conservative state, and though he is liberal, he is usually conservative on the issue of life and other things. So again, this is all a very nebulous, complicated issue. And what I take issue with as well is that Meghan is not explaining the realities of this to the rest of the world, and knows that she has a broad audience. So she's not doing her fact checking. She's not explaining that Clarence Thomas is not saying that the Supreme Court will outlaw gay marriage. That's not what he said. He said we should rescind the decision and then send it back to the state. So if you could get married with if gay marriage was legal in California, it would still be legal in California. It just wouldn't be legal in, let's say, Kentucky. Because again, we are a federation of states in this country. That's what we were designed for. We're not a monarchy, Meghan. We don't care. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. I really tried hard to be politically neutral in this as much as possible. You may have been able to figure out which party side I generally fall on, but when it comes to explaining this issue, it's very, very muddled, and it's very much populist, and each side doesn't exactly always understand the other. So I hope I kind of explained it to you rather well, and I'll put some links down and below to news articles, you know, what I mentioned about the Virginia governor and, you know, other things, so you guys can kind of hopefully maybe get a sense of what And I'll link the decision as well. So if you want to, you can read it for yourself. It's several pages long. And hopefully you can have, maybe, because I have a large international audience, which is great. Now, so hopefully you can better understand this issue from an American perspective. And again, don't mind if Meghan is trying to establish her political career, but she needs to drop her title ASAP. But she's not going to. And the reason she's not going to is because she isn't anything without it. She only matters because she is married to Harry, and that's the only reason Gloria Steinem even talked to her. And she knows it, and she has to go and reach out to these people. Notice that they're not coming to her. Oftentimes she reaches out. And so granted, a lot of them are like probably thinking, oh, you know, I don't really know her or anything, but Meghan is inserting herself. She's perpetuating this. They're not going, yes, we need Meghan Markle to come in and save the day. Meghan Markle is thinking, I can save the day. You know, we have to come together for my side. That's what aggravates me about politics sometimes. It's like, well, this is, my side is right. But it's like, but there's different perspectives. I'm a scales of gray person. What can I say? Sorry, I probably rambled too long. But I do understand kind of both sides where people are coming from this issue. And so again, I hope I portrayed it well. Thank you so much for watching. I know this one got long, but I just saw this. I knew what was coming. I knew she would have to insert herself into this because she cannot help herself, because she needs content for Netflix, guys. That's what she needs. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Royal Rundown will be back very, very soon. I so appreciate y'all's support. It's been wonderful, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Bye.